Hey everybody, it's Dr. Kalanicki. So sorry I'm going to be out today, but we're going to go over this lesson, which is a nice review from Friday and Thursday's lessons on reading box and whisker plots. So make sure you copy down the homework, you have today's handouts, and you put the date and the page number on today's handouts. Remember, your homework is due on Thursday, and you have an optional, the option of doing one of the questions on your reflection sheet through Flipgrid. I would say ones that really require you to explain your steps or explain something would be a great one to put on Flipgrid. Okay, so today's lesson is comparing populations. We're doing this again. We're doing it a little more in depth. So I'm going to read this to you and then we're going to get into a practice problem real quick. Recall that you use the mean and the mean absolute deviation to describe symmetric distributions of data. You use the median and interquartile range to describe skewed distributions of data. To compare two populations, use the mean and the MAD when distributions are symmetric, and use the median and the IQR when one or both distributions are skewed. So when I have data that's symmetrical, I would use the mean and the MAD. When it's not symmetrical, I would use the median or the IQR. And what we're going to be doing is, because all of our data is pretty much going to be not symmetrical, if you are given data that has a box and whisker plot, you're going to use the median and the IQR, which is what we're going to be doing all of today. So this is the one we're going to be using. Give it a big star. Because when we have box and whisker plots, this is the only information we can get from a box and whisker plot. I can't get the mean from a box and whisker plot. I can only get the median, and then I can also get the interquartile range because our box and whisker plots have quartiles on them. Makes sense, right? All right, pause the video if you need to write this down. If not, we're moving on to the model problem. So, you want to compare the cost of speeding tickets in two states. The double box and whisker plot shows a random sample of 10 speeding tickets issued in two states. Compare the samples using measures of center and variation and write in an inference about these two states. So again, because we're doing box and whisker plots, I want you to label the first row of the chart over here for your organization of the data. That's your measure of center, median, and your measure of variation is your IQR, also known as your interquartile range. I'm going to put these, I'm going to put this over here. So these are the two things you're going to find, both for state A and state B. So let's get myself a pen and we'll get started. All right, so we'll start with the median. The median for state A is going to be 70. Remember, median means middle. And for state B, the median is, I heard you. All right. 80. And now the interquartile range. Remember, the interquartile range deals with the quartiles. So here is quartile 1, here is quartile 3. I need to subtract them to get the interquartile range. So this number is 80. And this number is 60, and when I do 80 minus 60 in my calculator, I'm going to get 20. And if you want, let's show the work underneath. 80 minus 60. And I'm going to do the same thing for state B. I'm going to find the quartiles. Here's 170, so in my work will be 100 minus 70, which end up being 30. Now I need to make an inference. So, like I said, we can use those sentences from Friday's worksheet. So if you get lesson 11.5 out, those sentences on the top will help you write this sentence. So I can actually write two sentences, but I'm going to try to squish them into one sentence. I'm going to start with that word overall, and I'll start with the median. So we'll talk about the median. Let's say that state A's median, and what is it? Median cost of a ticket, right? State A's median cost of a speeding ticket is greater than state B. But I want to continue, and they say and or but, and then I look at their IQRs, and it looks like, ooh, I said this wrong, sorry. It's not greater, it's less, yes. Sorry, I'm reading my work as I'm doing it, and I'm realizing I'm saying it wrong. State A's median cost of a speeding ticket is less than state B's. And state A has a smaller range. And I can leave it at that. And I think we can imply a smaller range than state B. So you see how I squished two ideas into one. I took the statement that's talking about the median and I put that in there. And then I also mentioned the range, or the IQR, or the interquartile range. So I mentioned both pieces of information in just one sentence. You can do it. If you need to make two separate sentences, that is okay as well. So when you're doing these, you can either try to squish it into one sentence like I did here, or you could write it as two separate sentences. The two separate sentences would say, overall, state A's median cost of a speeding ticket is less than state B's. And my second sentence would say, overall, state A has a smaller range than state B. And there we go. So now what I want you to do is you're going to get into partners and you're going to work on the next ones. The only difference with these is you notice there's nothing labeled in the tables here. So just to get you started on this, the first table would have the two different box and whisker plot labels. So this is team A, and this box would say team B. These are the two things I am comparing. And then on the side, I would label median, or you could just do MED for short, and then the IQR would also go here. So these are the two things I'm finding. I'm finding a measure of center, and that's, if you look at the language here, for each box and whisker plot, determine the measure of center, which in this case we're talking about median, and a measure of variation, which in this case we're talking about the interquartile range. So you're going to find the median and the interquartile range for each one, and in this empty space over here, you're going to write your inference. Write the inference statement. You're going to do that for each one of these examples until you get to 5. 5 is interesting questions. I want you to think about it. Think about these two questions. There's one question here and there's one question here. And let's see if you can explain your answer to your partner, and then maybe we'll switch partners and see if there's time. If not, we can share our answers with the class. So pause the video right now, go into partners to do these questions, and come back when you're ready to go over them. Okay, if you're back, that means you're ready to go over these. Team A's median here is 3. Team B's median is 7. Gotta move these around a little bit. Here we go. Whoa. The interquartile range for Team A would be 2. And the interquartile range for Team B would also be 2. So your statement would say something like, overall, Team A's median looks like cost per game, or goals, I'm not sure. It looks like the label and the description is different. But that Team A has an overall lower median than Team B, but they vary the same. And that's another way of saying it, is they vary equally or they vary the same. I'm not sure what the median was. It says goals scored, so let's try median goals scored was less than Team B's, and then they are equally varied. That just means they're spread out about the same. They are equally varied in terms of their interquartile range. They're spread out about the same amount. If we look here, about the same amount, right? 2 and 2. For number 2, our two labels would be sports and politics or political magazines, and I am comparing the number of words in a sentence. So I'm comparing their median and also their IQR, their interquartile range. For this one's a little tricky, it's not so clear here. Let's take a look. Their median sports is 20. Median for this one is right in between 22 and 24, so that would make 23. And then this is going to be about 21. This is about 19, 20, 21, so our interquartile range is 2. And same thing here, 24 minus 22 is also 2. So a very similar sentence to what we had written on the last example. Overall, let's do political magazines, median number of words per sentence is more than sports magazines. They are equally varied. There we go. You pause the video at any time to copy this down if you need to. Number 3, football. Again, points scored in the regular season. So we have Team A here. And then we have Team B. And again, we're comparing their medians and their interquartile ranges. We're talking about their measure of center, which in this case, the only measure of center we can find on a box and whisker plot is the median. And then our measure of variation is their interquartile range. Here's a little trickier. The numbers are not so nice. I'm trying to think what number is exactly in between 12 and 16. Well, I have 12, and then I have 13, I have 14, I have 15. So the middle number there would be 14. So 14 for A. This one's nice and easy. It's nice and clear. 32 for B. This guy would be 22, and this guy would be 6. So my calculator, 22 minus 6 would be 16 for the interquartile range here. If your numbers are slightly different, that's okay. And then 36 minus 20, this should also be 16. So if you did it correctly, again, that's pretty much right down the center. So your answer really should be, that should be 22 and that should be 6. So be really careful when you're reading if you made a mistake there. So overall, we're talking about, let's do Team B scored more points than Team A. Both teams were varied equally. And our last one that we have to write out, we have male and female students, and it's talking about hours of sleep. Interesting. I wonder if this information is real or if they kind of made it up. Median and the IQR. So our median here is right in between 8 and 9, which means it has to be 8 5/10. And our median for our female students is 9 hours. Our interquartile range, 9 minus 7 for the males makes 2. And it looks like 9.5 and 8.5, which would make 1 for the females. So, according to this data, overall female students sleep more hours than male students. Overall, male students' hours of sleep are more varied. So there's more variability. We're not, boys' hours of sleep, according to this diagram, are more spread out than the girls, which showing that girls have more consistent, less varied, more consistent sleep schedules. Interesting. So girls are more consistent, which means they are closer together. Most of the girls have a time of bed, time they sleep closer together than the boys. Very interesting. And let's get to that last think about it question. I love this question. I think it's really cool. There's two girls basketball teams. These are the Tigers and the Bobcats, and this is their shoe sizes. So the first question says, can you conclude that at least one girl from each team has the same shoe size? Is there a girl on the Tigers that has the same shoe size as a girl from the Bobcats? What's your answer for this? The answer should be yes. I can actually pick a few girls from this team that also have the same size as this. So it looks like if you look here and here, these two girls both have a size 9 shoe. So technically, at least one girl from this team has the same shoe size. And if you even want to be sure, it can even say, oh look, there's an 8.5, and this person has an 8.5. So there's at least one person from each team that has the same shoe size. So that's a really cool question. Second question says, can you conclude that at least one girl from the Bobcats has a larger shoe size than one girl from the Tigers? So if I pick the biggest shoe size from the Bobcats and I say, okay, is this person's shoe size bigger than somebody from this team from the Tigers? Yes, I can. Because look, here's a person right here from the Tigers, and it's less than this person from the Bobcats. So the answer to both of them is yes. Hopefully you were able to explain it by looking at the box and whisker plot. I hope you had a good time practicing these. This will definitely be on your test. You have to be able to compare like this, the measure of center and the measure of variation, as well as writing an inference statement about them. So that is definitely what I'm going to be expecting from you on your test on Friday. Remember, if you need something to do besides your homework, you also have your study guide, which has a fill-in-the-blank notes section. I will be handing out the key to that probably either tomorrow or Wednesday, so be prepared. All right, guys, I hope you had a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.